Hey there, welcome to the Florin Pro tutorial based on Brandon Johnson's winning image. He won the Facebook contest. We did a contest, everyone could submit an image, and then all of you guys voted on which image would be edited. So this is the image we're going to be doing today, and I'm super excited. We're doing something we've never done on Florin. It's going to be really cool. We're going to do like a magazine style edit, and it's going to be about fashion and amazing colors, and it's just going to be spectacular. And I'm excited for you because you're going to have a lot of fun. I'm in a great, silly mood, and we're going to have some fun over the next, hour and a half or so. So let's go ahead and get started. This is the image Brandon Johnson sent over. This is the Queen City in the background. This is Charlotte, North Carolina, which is actually where I lived for a few years. I'm in Chicago now. And this is a gorgeous young lady, and we've got a background here. And I don't... In deciding what to do with this image, I don't necessarily dislike this background a whole lot, but it doesn't really do anything for me. Our subject is great and it's beautiful, and this back here didn't do a whole lot. So, I thought about removing some telephone wires, but then it's like, well, you guys know how to do that stuff. So we're going to just do a lot to this instead, and I'm just going to rip out Charlotte, North Carolina. I don't really hate Charlotte, North Carolina. We're just going to take it out because we don't need it anymore. So we're going to do that. Now, the other thing I would like to do is we're going to go ahead and load. I sent you guys a bunch of textures, and I'm going to show you guys some really amazing things with the textures and how to use those. So let's go ahead and load those up. I'm going to go to File. We're going to go to Scripts, and we're going to go to Load Files in Stack, which is right over here. And then we're going to go to Load Layers. Let's hit the Browse. We'll go over to the textures that I sent over. Oh, by the way, that's kind of a preview right there of what we're going to be doing today. So textures, and then I'm going to hit Command A to select all those and hit Open. There we go. It's going to load them up in a list, and we're going to hit OK. And by loading them all into a stack, basically it just sticks them all in the same document, and you don't have to worry about, you don't have to worry about trying to get them all together after the fact. They're going to be in there, and they're good to go. So I don't need those right away, but I am going to go ahead and group them together. Let's just bring my navigator up there. All right. We're going to hold down Shift and click on all those layers and hit Command G. It's going to group them together. Now we're going to use the Move tool right over here and then hit Shift and click and drag. And this is going to make sure they copy over to the middle of this. They don't go in weird places. All right, so hit Shift, click and drag. And now we've got this group of textures. It's on top of our background image, so that's perfect. And we don't need this anymore, so I'm going to click on it. Command W, don't save. And then we're going to hit F, full screen. All right, I know I just did an onslaught of keyboard shortcuts at you, but that's just kind of getting set up. So now we have our background image, and we have quite a few textures over top of that. We're not going to use these textures for another 20 or 30 minutes, but we're going to we got them there for when we need them. All right, so let's talk about our plan for this image. Now, the lighting in this, I didn't take this photograph, so I don't know the exact lighting, but I can analyze it the best that I know how to do, and that's actually a pretty decent skill to have. I'm not saying that I'm incredibly good at it, but I've done it quite a bit. This looks like the light is coming from that direction. You can see the sky is quite a bit brighter here, and it gets darker here. So that's going to be important because we're going to be replacing the background. We want to reproduce the same lighting in the background as well. If you don't do that, it's just not going to look natural. So when replacing a background, don't try to put a sun over here because she's lit from the left. So just kind of pay attention to that. I can see in the background it's lighter here, a little bit darker there, and her hair's lit up on this side, not so lit up on that side. So you do want your light source to be stronger over here on the left. And it's kind of coming from behind her. If it was coming from in front, you would see lit up more of her hair and the shadow here. And then we can see some of this fence is actually on her jacket there as well. So that's just a shadow from the fence. So that's our lighting direction. Now, I don't know, it looks like a relatively bright day. So either there was a reflector used to brighten up these shadows a little bit, or maybe that was done in, in post-processing before it was sent over to us. I don't know. Or it could have just happened that the shadows didn't go very dark, but I'm guessing there was probably some kind of a reflector here, maybe a white reflector, just kind of help bounce back some of the light and to whiten that up. And if you guys want to take a shot like this outside, you can definitely do that. The light from the sun is beautiful. It's beautiful and natural light, and a reflector is relatively inexpensive. You can get them for less than $100, and you can take a well-balanced portrait like this. So if you guys are kind of starting out or you're curious, something you can get a great portrait outdoors, even in direct sun, a reflector is going to get you there. So that's another thing we're going to look at too. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to just replace all this background. So we're going to cut her out pretty well from her background. We're going to get her hair and things like that. Another thing you guys are going to notice, let's just delete that layer and start over. a new color is in order. There we go. Another thing you guys are going to notice is the colors that are reflecting. So I know, for instance, that she's not standing, like where she's standing, probably looks quite a bit like this. It's maybe the ground is probably either concrete or cement, or it's not a whole lot of grass. It's because these colors, these angles that are facing downwards, you can see that's facing downwards, that's facing downwards, that's facing downwards. Those are reflecting the color from the ground, and that's what's giving it these colors. Everything that's facing upwards is bluish in hue, and that's because it's reflecting the sky. So this is like, you know, reflecting the sky. It's going to be bluish in hue. So if we do replace the sky, which we are going to do, you have to make sure you take care of this sort of thing as well, because if this is reflecting blue because of the blue sky, and then you put like a purple sky in there and this is still blue, it's going to look horrible. So we're going to talk about doing that as well. Okay, and it's just kind of cool. Like if you want to, you know, kind of analyze some images, you can definitely figure out what's going on with color and light and everything like that. All right, so that's our start. Now, I do want to replace our background. So on our background layer, I'm going to hit Command J, and that's just going to duplicate the background. And we're going to go ahead and cut our subject out. So there are a lot of ways you can cut the subject out. Now, this is totally going to depend on the image, the particular image you're working on. I'm just going to try a few different modes. We're going to start with the easiest and work our way harder. All right, let's go to our lasso tool and click and hold on that. You'll go down to this magnetic lasso tool. Let's just click on that. There we go. And what we want to do is basically trace an outline around our subject. So this is a really easy tool to use. It doesn't work well all the time, but if it does work well, it's a good one to use. So what you want to do is click here at kind of like a border, and it's going to get a little confused over here. It's doing okay. All right, and you can see it's kind of following the jacket. It's going to get the hair there. And it's not going to do very well with the hair, so don't worry about that. We'll handle the hair in a different way. Mostly I'm just worried about the rest of it. And, you know, you can see it's getting tripped up by the fence and stuff. It looks for edges. This is how the tool works. And so if there's an edge of a fence, it's just going to be like, I don't know what to do, Aaron. I'm freaking out over here. And then you say, it's okay, pen tool or lasso tool, I got it. Okay, so we turn that into a selection. Now, it's not a great selection, but we can make it better. If you hold down the Alt or the Option key, you can see it has a little minus arrow there. So you can actually minus some things out. You know, if you do want to go back over and like try to get it, but it's still not even doing it very well. So we'll just take care of that in a different way. All right, let's see if this is going to take care of it. Alt or Option, and I'm going to click here and see if I can follow this around. This is generally, I don't know. This is not the best tool. Like, I'm going to have to go back and refix this in a couple different areas. But we'll just say, like, if that's as good of a selection as we're going to get with this, we'll just go with it and then we'll clean it up. Okay, so we have a selection around there. Now, the first thing I want to do is just click on this layer mask button. And it's going to load that into a layer mask. Now, we can't see any difference because this layer is it's over top of the same thing. But if I make this layer visible, you can see now she's on a transparent background. So we have a couple different things that I want to do to check this background. I'm going to hit my brush tool, so B for the brush tool, Alt or Option, grab a sample color there, and I'm going to make a layer in between these two layers, just sample like this color, then Alt or Option, hit delete. And that's just going to fill the entire image with that color. So now we can see what our selection actually looks like on a background. All right, now what we're going to do is just go in here and kind of clean the selection up. And this is going to, the reason why we're going to be doing it in the way I want to do it right now is because, I'll just explain something really quick. I have a plan for this image. In fact, I know what I want it to look like. We want it to look like this. Like I know what I want it to look like. And the edges being incredibly great are not the most important part of this image. Sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not. And if they're not, it's not usually worth using a tool like the pen tool, for instance, that takes a really long time to use. Sometimes you can just do things a little bit quicker. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do things quicker, and it's acceptable to do things the quick way when the edges are not really, really important. Otherwise, you'll want to use something like the pen tool, and there are plenty of pro tutorials on using the pen tool as well. So we're going to try the lasso tool, and I'm just going to kind of click here, and instead of starting here and like doing this, you can see how it's jagged. I always start like up there and kind of come in down here and then do something like this. And I'm using a Wacom tablet. So it's basically like me drawing, which it's easy for me to make these selections. But if you guys don't like making these selections, or it's not easy for you, maybe I'll show you how to use the pen tool in just a second. Okay, so if you make a selection like that, and then you want to fill it with black on your layer mask to make that invisible, you just hit Command Delete, and that fills with your background color on your layer mask, and then that's black. So we can see, there's a little bit of like, the edge isn't perfect because of my hand was kind of like jagging, whatever. It's jigging and jagging, and it's doing both. But it's good enough because we're going to be blurring this edge in a little bit anyway. There we go. So what we're looking for here is like maximum, there we go, fill that with white. We're looking for the maximum benefit with the least amount of time. Let's say you were doing 10 of these images and you don't want to spend the rest of, like a whole week cutting someone out, especially if you're going to wind up blurring the edge and it's not even going to matter anyway. All right, there we go. So I will do one part of let's just do this with the pen tool. So you can see the pen tool really is the best tool to use for this. Like, it's going to be the most precise, but it's going to take the longest. Okay, here's how you use a pen tool. Hit P for the pen tool. Okay, and basically the pen tool just makes curves, and then you turn those curves into a selection, and then you use that selection to define your layer mask. So same thing with the pen tool. I like to start kind of like out here and then like bring it in. That way we get a nice even transition from like the selection into the actual object we want to use. Okay, and then click there. The pen tool, if you just click points like this, it makes a straight line in between them. And if you click and drag like this, it's going to make a curve, okay? But a lot of people when they're first starting out have a little bit of trouble with that. So I'm gonna give you guys a hint. Just find the points where a simple curve. Let me make a new layer. I'll just use my brush tool to talk about simple curve versus complex curve. Okay, a simple curve does that, or like this. Okay, it goes here, it goes up, and then comes back down. A complex curve does like this, and then like that. See, it's got two curves in it. There's a curve that starts here, and then it ends there. And then a curve that starts here, and then ends there. So you're looking for the simple curves in your image, because a pen tool, like it has one simple curve, right? If you do this, and then that's two different curves. So each time you have a direction change, you have what's called a complex curve. And if you make a point with your pen tool at each one of the direction changes, you'll be good to go when it comes to using your pen. All right, let's just do this again. So we'll go back to our pen tool. We'll just start it off right here this time. Now you can see there's this line kind of curves out in that direction, right? And then we have a point. So let's click there. There we go. And I'm not even going to click and drag. I'm going to show you guys the easiest way to do this. Okay, and then we have another one that kind of curves out like that, and you can see it like it stops and then it curves out again. So like we don't we want to maintain the simple curves. We don't want to do complex curves. So I'm going to just click there again. And now we have another one all the way out there and then back in. So we're going to click at that point again, and then, just right down there. Okay, now we need to follow the curve. So what we're going to do, I'm going to hold the Alt or the Option key down, and I'm going to click these and drag them out like this. Okay, so what was just a point, Alt or Option, makes it into a curve. And now you can see drag a point from one to the other. You can let that go, and Alt or Option, you can just do one at a time. So now I can grab this one, and I'm holding Alt or Options down still, and then I can grab this one. Now if I wanted to move this point, let's say I do, you just hold down the Control key. Now Alt or Option again, because I need this to be a curve, so there we go. Drag that out. This guy I can put right over there, and then this guy I will drag right down there, and then we have a curve that's out in this direction. So if you're curious as to why this is a better option than the lasso tool, it's because these lines are very nice and clean. It's not doing this like when I use my hand, right? It's like a very nice clean line, and it's just going to look a lot better in the end. Okay, so you can see out of a couple points, now I've made curves, and that's the easiest way to use the pen tool there. I'm holding Control right now, and I'm going to move that slightly inside of the border. Okay, great. Now I'm going to continue this around and close this up just like a regular selection. I'm going to right click here and go to Make Selection. There we go. And in that selection, click on your layer mask here and then hit Command Delete. There we go. And then deselect by hitting Command D. Okay, so we made that pen path into a selection, and you can see like it's not jagged, it's just a very nice clean line. And if you wanted to go around your entire subject like that, totally rock on, be my guest. I'm not going to do it because that's not the entire point of this tutorial. But you know, sometimes it's called for that. Like if you're cutting out a car for a car ad, use the pen tool. You know, something like this where your edges are going to be blurred anyway, it's not as important. Okay, now what we're going to do, I'm going to hold down shift and click on this so I can kind of see like, you know, what's going on here with like the sleeves and things like that. So if I need to go back, I can do that with my lasso tool, or maybe I'll just use a pen tool. There we go. We'll just click and drag all the way down to there and hit make selection. There we go. We'll click on our layer mask and hold down Alt or Option and then hit delete, and that's going to fill with our foreground color, which is white. Okay, this is looking good. So we've saved a bunch of time. Like that really didn't take too long, and she's cut out pretty well. Let's go ahead and do her head, on top of her head, and her hair. All right, so my lasso selection tool, we're going to select out the top all the way there, and then Alt or Option delete to fill that. Okay, now we need to do her hair. And her hair we're going to do in a completely different way because her hair is a soft edge and the rest of her body is a hard edge. So we want to make sure to cut her hair out in a way that's going to allow us to do the soft edge. So with that, we're going to use our channels. I'm going to hold down shift and click on this layer mask real quick. And that's just going to disable the layer mask so we can see what it looks like without a layer mask on there. Okay. Now, with that layer mask disabled, what we're going to do is click on our channels. And I'm going to show you guys. First, you want to click on RGB. And then you'll go to red, green, and then blue. And what we're looking for here is just a difference in color. I just want to be able to make a selection out of this edge here. So I want the difference, sorry, not in color, but in light and dark. So between red channel, green channel, and blue channel, the biggest difference between light and dark is in my blue channel. Like the red channel, this is about the same, right? Green channel, it's getting better, but here in my blue channel, the hair is pretty dark and the background's light. It makes sense that the background's light because there's a lot of light in the background. All right, now let's duplicate the blue channel, click and drag that to the new layer icon, the new channel icon. Now we want to exaggerate this difference a little bit more, and that's going to help us make a selection. So I'm going to hit Command L, and that's going to bring up our levels. And we're just going to take this and kind of drag it up this way, and that's making our mid-tone a little bit darker. Now I'm going to take my my white tone and make that a little bit lighter. There we go, and hit OK. So now we have a really dark edge here where her hair is and a relatively light edge there. So now what we need to do is turn this into a selection. And when you turn a channel into a selection, it just turns the light part into a selection. It doesn't really select out the dark part. So I'm going to hit Command and click there. That's turning the light part of the layer into a selection. Now we're going to go back to the layers. I know this is a lot, guys, but I'll do it again with the other side. Okay, go back to the layers, and I need to see what I'm doing, so I'm just going to click on my layer mask, and now we have our selection. Okay, so the selection that we just made is actually it's the light part, right? It's the outside. I want her hair to be selected. I actually want the inverse of this selection. So I'm going to go to select and down to inverse. There we go. Now it's selecting inside of her hair, and I'm going to paint this on the layer mask, paint it back visible on the layer mask, and it's going to look a lot better. It's not going to look like a jagged, nasty edge. Or sorry, you can see the edges. It's from the lasso tool. I want it to look like hair. Okay, so we've got these like marching ants here, and I really don't want them there. Like I want to not be able to see them real quick because I need to paint this in. So I'm going to hit Command H, and that's just going to hide those temporarily. Okay, you can see like it's still selected. You just can't really see it. Okay, Command H, and then on our layer mask, we're going to hit B for the brush tool. Okay, and I'm going to paint white on my layer mask. There we go. And as I paint white, you can see because her head is selected now, there we go. We can see that looks quite a bit better because now our layer mask actually looks like this instead of just, you know, whatever comes out of the lasso tool. All right, shift click on there and you can see it gets all of our individual hairs. And that's because our layer mask, it's basically a direct copy from right there. All right, that's a lot to do. I know. We're going to do the same thing with the other side of her head. But before we do, let me hit Command H. So now the inside of her head is selected. Let's just show you that again. So Command click on this blue copy. Now that's selecting the outside. And now what I want to do is I want to paint with black. So I'm going to hit D and then X to bring black to my foreground color. I'm going to hit Command H again, and now this out here is selected, and I've got black on my, I'm using black because that's going to make this layer invisible wherever I paint. And what this is going to do is it's going to like help ease the transition from hair. So as I paint out from here, it's not going to be incredibly noticeable, but you're definitely going to see it's letting more light in from the background. So Alter Option, now this is what my layer mask looks like because it's got some black coming in and some white going out. All right, and we're a lot better. It looks a lot better for one, and it's going to be a lot better whenever we decide to put a background in there because it's going to kind of carry over some of the colors. Okay, let's do the same thing with the other side of her hair. So I can't see it right now. I have to hold down Shift and click on this. So now that I can see her hair, we're going to go back to our channels, and I'm going to go to the red channel, green channel, and blue channel. All right, and with this one, the red channel is actually the best because you can see the hair is lighter than the background. They're almost the same, and the blue channel, just about the same as well. So let's play with the red channel and see what we can do there. All right, click and drag, duplicate the red channel, hit Command L, and we just want to bring the darks a bit darker. There we go, and the light's a bit lighter. And that's going to be a pretty nice selection there. All right. Yep, something like that. Looks pretty good. All right. Okay. And now we have a nice difference between light and dark, which is exactly what we wanted. So let's turn this into a selection. Command click on that. Turns the lights into a selection. Back in the layers. Shift click on this layer mask. And now we have the lights as a selection, which is her hair. So on this layer mask, we want to paint that white to make it visible. So we'll paint with white now. And I'm going to hit Command H to hide our selection. There we go. And that's painting her hair visible. It's painting a little bit of this other stuff visible too, because I went too far, but it's not a huge deal. I'll just hit undo and then paint it again. There we go. So that's painting her hair back visible, and it's getting all the nice little strands and everything like that, which is perfect. Now I'm going to hit Shift Command I, which is the same thing as going to select inverse. Okay, hit Command H again, and then hit X. And now we're painting black into the selection instead of white out of the selection. So this is what our layer mask looks like now. Pretty good. Now, if you want to just clean this up a little bit, because I don't want to be able to see that, you can just leave your layer mask visible and paint black on your layer mask, and you can just, kind of get rid of some of this stuff there. All right. And to make my brush larger and smaller, I'm holding down the Control and the Option key, and just dragging to the left and the right. That's a really quick way to make your brush larger and smaller. All right, there we go. Now, if you wanted to, kind of detail this yourself and go in here and use a pen tool, you can do that. I'm just gonna use a brush tool because hair has a relatively soft edge anyway, so you don't need the most perfect selection there. All right, Alter Option, click on there, and that looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and paint a little bit of black for my edge. And there we go. I think we're looking great. So let's shift click on this, and we can see we got all the hair that we need to get. Most of the flyaways anyway. We can add some more as we feel, as we need to, but we've got most of the flyaways. All right, that looks pretty good. Now we are just about ready. So the reason I put this background in here is so you can see, I don't really know what I'm doing here. We can see what's going on here with this background. And we have quite a bit of stuff. Let's just zoom in. We have quite a bit of stuff that we need to do here on the edge. I'm going to show you guys how to refine this edge. So you can see this little bit of fringing there. We want to get rid of that. So to refine your edge, click on your layer mask and go to, sorry, I had something in my mouth just then. It's a seed or something. I don't know. I was eating some dates earlier. Anyway, I'm sure you wanted to know that. I eat dates. So go to select, and they're not even the bad kind. They're medjool dates. They're delicious. Go to select, and then go down here to refine mask. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to refine this. Let's just bring all these things to 0. So 0, 0, 0, and 0. Now, we want this edge to be a little bit softer. So we're going to bring this feathering up just a tiny bit. All right, maybe feathering about 1 looks good. And now you can choose to shift your edge outward or inward. So try shifting it outwards, and you can see it's kind of adding to that. If we shift it inwards, it's going to kind of take away that little bit of fringing. All right, and then, your edge should be relatively clean. You can hold down the spacebar key and just kind of move around your image and, figure out if that works for you. I'm okay with the edge being a little bit softer. Oh, well, look at this. Totally did some weird stuff there, right? Like I'm not digging what it did there. That looks horrible. Let's hit cancel because I don't want that to, I don't want it to affect my whole image like that. I only wanted it to affect this part of the image like that. Okay, now what we need to do is, let's see. All right, I'm trying to think of how we can just select out that part of the image and then just refine the edge on there. Okay, if I go to Command, click on there, and then go to Refine Edge, what's this gonna do? Output to View on Layers. Okay, I know how to do it. I figured it out, don't worry. Okay, so I wanted to Command click on there. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, oh gosh, I don't know if this is gonna work actually. I'm gonna minus this out here. So none of that is selected, like her hair, because I didn't want that selected. And now I'm gonna try to go to Refine Edge. I don't know if it's gonna cut her head off. It is, it's gonna cut her head off. I'm sorry, I didn't wanna cut your head off. All right, let's forget about the shifting the edge in or out. Let's just give it a little bit of a, I'll show you guys another trick. All right, we'll forget about the shifting the edge in and out. Normally it would have worked fine, but when it tried to shift the edge here, because it was a feathered edge, it just kind of did some weird stuff. Okay, let's click there and we'll go to select Refine Mask, and we're just going to hit this back on 0. All right, and hit OK. There we go. The hair should look okay, and it's a little bit softer of an edge. Okay, so here what we're going to do, we're going to do two things combined. We're going to take care of our edge, but we're also going to take care of this shadow, and we'll do those both together. And I want you guys to use your brush tool for this, because you don't be afraid of your brush tool. It's one of the most important things I learned in Photoshop is the most important thing about your image is the color that's underneath it. And on top of this, all this stuff, that's just texture. And you can always apply texture to just about anything you paint. So you can get away with doing a lot if you just use your brush tool and then paint over it and add a texture. I'll show you guys how to do that in a minute. But, get comfortable using your brush tool. It's going to save you a lot of time and allow you to be really creative. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to show you guys a little bit how clipping masks work real quick. All right, grab a nice pink color and paint it over our subject, just like that. Okay, now you can see it's visible everywhere, and it's on its own layer. There's nothing special about it. Now what I want to do is clip this to the layer beneath it, and it's going to make it only visible where this layer is visible. So I'm going to right click on it and go to Create Clipping Mask. And now we can see, I'll just grab a Move tool. If I move this around, it's only visible where our subject is visible, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so this is called a clipping mask, and you can use this for many different reasons. I'm going to show you guys one of the best reasons to do that now. We're actually going to use a lot of clipping masks today. So new layer, and then you can also hit Option Command G. That'll clip it as well. Okay, what we're going to do is grab our brush tool, and to get rid of this fringing on the edge, this is like the easiest thing in the world, and I think you're going to love it. Hold Alt or Option with your brush tool. So B for your brush tool, Alt or Option is a sample tool. And then just grab the color that's right near the edge and then just paint with that color, like to the edge. And then it's like, oh, really? Now we don't have that fringing anymore? Because basically what's happening is Option Command G on that. We're just painting white, like over there. But because it's clipped, it's only showing up where this layer is visible. And so it, shows up right to the very edge. And in this case, now we have a nice clean edge. So this is a very easy way to get rid of fringing, and you'll lose a tiny bit of detail there, but it's at the edge anyway. And especially in this case where it's white, it's like you're not going to see that anyway. All right, this is a little bit of weirdness. I need to paint this back visible on my layer mask. It was interpreting that shadow as not supposed to be there. All right, let's go to the other side and I'll show you how this works over here too. So Alt or Option, just grab your sample color, and you're going to get rid of all your fringing there. All your fringing needs are gone. And then it just, even if you didn't make a clean selection, it just looks like she's wearing shoddy clothes. Look at that. Nice. It's not my fault. Okay, she was the one wearing the shoddy clothing. I'm a perfect retoucher. I make no mistakes ever. You can tell your clients that. You'll be like, I was certified by Aaron Nace, and he does not take shortcuts. All right, these little shortcuts, guys, they can save you a lot of time. Like, really, you don't have to make your selections perfect anymore now. Like, even that's not supposed to be there, but you know, I'll just like paint this in there, and then like voila, it's just shirt now. It's like, what? Did he just make that shirt? Oh, does he have the ability to make a shirt from anything? And now you guys do too. All right, cool. So you can see my edges look pretty good. This even works on things like hair. If you want to grab a nice light color and paint on the hair, then it's like, oh, there's no blue there anymore. Oh, that's really nice. Congratulations. Great. Now, see, taking this off and on, let's just zoom out a little bit. Off and on, you can see like having a nice clean edge really makes a difference, right? It's like, that looks horrible. That looks pretty good. Okay, now let's take care of this. And you could do this in a very complicated way that you would hate, or you can do it in a very simple way, which I'll show you. Make a new layer and then hit Option-Command-G again to clip it. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to sample this color and kind of paint with the direction of the fabric here. Okay, so we're just painting on new fabric, to be completely honest. Like, this is not at all like, you know, there's no fabric here. Like, I move this around and it just looks like this. Like, this is just brush tool. Okay, there's no fabric that I'm painting. This is just the brush tool. Make this a little bit smaller. And I'm kind of trying to keep the shadows and things like that. Like, I want to keep everything kind of making sense. So like, if there's a shadow area in here, like, let's keep that shadow area, right? Make this a little bit smaller, maybe put a little bit of a harsher line there. There we go. And also, I'm doing this pretty quick, guys. If this were a, you know, an image that required a little bit more fine tuning or whatever, I would spend a little bit more time. I don't know if fine tuning is not the right word, but you know what I mean. Sometimes it's worth spending a long time on this sort of thing. Sometimes it's not. All right. And in this case, it's not really as worth it. All right. Make a big layer, do something like this. Cool. That looks good. So we just got rid of all that. Now, here's your test. The test is, if you zoom way out, you can't even see textures anyway, right? Like, I can't see those textures. If there were textures on this shirt, I couldn't even see them anyway. So if you zoom out, and I'm going to keep on painting while I talk, and you can't, like, it looks good from way zoomed out. Like, does that look good? Does that look like a shirt? You know, like shadow, no shadow, shadow, no shadow. Okay. If it does, then you're fine. You can always add texture on top of something. You know, I'm going to show you guys how to do that right now, but you know, you can, if it looks good from far away, then you're good to go. You can always add the texture on top of it later. Okay. So how do you add texture on top of something? Well, it's not really that hard. What we're going to do, I'm just going to hit the clone stamp tool. I'm going to sample here and then paint over here. Oh, let's make a new layer first. There we go. And we've got some jacket fabric. Okay. Jacket fabric. Very cool. Now I'm going to desaturate this by hitting Shift-Command-U. Okay. Now we're going to go to Filter, Other, and High Pass. Now a high pass filter is going to extract the texture from whatever you high pass. Okay. So don't overdo it like this. That's too much. Don't underdo it so you can't see anything. You want to be able to see a good bit of detail in the texture. Hit OK there. Okay. So now we have this. And how do we use this? We change the layer blending mode from normal to like overlay or soft light. And you can see it adds back your texture on top of wherever you decide to paint it. So in this case, we didn't have like a really great fabric sample. All right, so that's really not going to work. That doesn't look good at all. I'll show you guys a different way. We'll just make it from scratch. That would be a great example if there was like a nice swatch of clean fabric where you could see like the detail in there, but I couldn't see anything there, so it really didn't help out. Let's do this instead. I'm going to make this layer, Shift Delete, and then hit Fill with OK Gray. Fill with OK Gray. We've got a lot to cover, so I'm trying to go relatively fast, but you guys can always rewind. That's the greatest part. All right, so we just made a selection filled with gray. We're going to go to Noise and Add Noise, okay? And crank that up. It really doesn't matter, okay? Just change this from normal down to soft light. And noise, by the way, will pass for texture, like, you know, just about any time. There we go. I'm going to hit Command U. See how there's the color in there? Command U, and then I'm going to just bring the saturation down. Not quite black and white, but bringing it down. There we go. And now we're going to go to filter, we're going to stylize, and then to emboss. Okay, and we can kind of decide, yeah, that looks pretty good there. Height of 1 pixel amount. Sure. Option Command G, that will clip that so it's not going to be visible on the backdrop now. And then we can just kind of hit size it. Like, I'm just comparing the size of this to the size of what this other fabric here is going on here. Now it looks pretty good. I'm just going to bring the opacity down on that a little bit. Very nice. And then we just paint it visible where we want it to be visible. So put a layer mask on that, make that layer mask black, and then paint white on your layer mask at like 20%. There we go. And I just painted texture back on that jacket over top of where I just painted with a brush tool. I'll zoom in so you guys can see it. Isn't that nice? And you can give it a little bit of a blur if you want to, because that was way, it had too much definition. There we go. Lower the opacity a little bit. So we have that chain link. I just painted over that, painted over the chain link. And you could spend a little bit more time making that a little nicer if you wanted, and then put texture back over top of it. All right, and there we go. That's our jacket. And we got rid of the chain link fence. So that's important. Alter option, there's the original. That's what we're working with right now. Perfect. So we're doing pretty well getting her set up for her background. There are a couple of things I want to do with just skin retouching real quick. And yeah, again, we're going to use the same technique for her face that we did for the earlier. What am I talking about here? We're going to use the same technique for the details in her face, but I'm going to paint under that. So I'll show you guys how to do that real quick. All right, we're going to make a new layer, and I'm going to hit Shift Option Command E, and that's going to make a stamp visible layer. Okay, now we're going to go to Shift Command U, desaturates it, filter, other, high pass. Okay, and there we go. That looks pretty good, and change this down to like linear light, which adds detail. This is like a sharpening step, okay? Now, underneath this linear light, what we're going to do is on a new layer, I'm going to just make this invisible real quick. On a new layer, I'm going to do basically what I did with her jacket and just grab my brush tool and then paint. I'm at a flow of like 5 or 10% here, like a really low flow. And this is like very quick skin retouching. You can't see the pore at this level. You can't see the pores in her skin anyway. So it's not like we really need to, you know, worry about using a clone stamp tool or a healing brush tool in there. This is just more like a general smoothing type of thing. Like, you know, making one color blur into another color. So I'm sampling colors, alter option, sample, and then I'll paint a little bit, sample, and then paint a little bit. And I'm just kind of trying to smooth everything together. All right, there's no real, you know, that looks pretty good. That's too much in her eye, so let's just hit eraser tool. Okay, cool. So that's just smoothing that out. Now this layer is going to be visible. I'm going to hit Option Command G to make that visible there. And that's going to make this layer visible, but only where this layer is visible. So now what you see we have is I painted new skin. See, I kind of like made everything come together, and then I'm adding this texture right back over top. We'll just lower the opacity. So it doesn't, you know, it looks like she's got skin texture, even though I just painted that with a paintbrush tool. Like, pretty cool, right? So paintbrush tool, and then we have texture back over top of that. There we go, and it looks good. So skin texture and painted that, which is great. And then I'm going to group all of these together. Yes, that's what we're gonna do. Okay. Sorry, I'm just thinking like, okay, we're trying to do a lot of stuff here. Okay, so we're gonna shift click on all those, and I'm gonna hit Command G to group those together, and then we're good to go too. I'm gonna hit Option Command G there. No, you know what? This is, I confused myself a little bit. Okay, because I do want all these to be clipped down to my background layer. Let's make this invisible. So this layer, for instance, I had this layer clipped to the layer that I painted on, which did visually give me the look that I want. There's a problem here in that I want to be able to continue to clip layers on, and this starts a new clipping group. Okay, if this has got you confused, I apologize. Basically, I want to be able to always clip down to here, and right now I can't clip down farther than this because it's a stopping point. And if I clip this down there, then this does not clip to this, it clips all the way down to here. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do instead. Because I only want this layer, the sharpening layer, to be visible where I painted, what I'm gonna do is hit Command and click on this layer. I'm gonna make this layer visible, and then I'm gonna put a layer mask on there. So Alt Option, click on there. And what this is doing, Command clicking on this turns that layer into a selection, and then I loaded that as a layer mask for this layer. So now this is still only visible where this layer is visible, but I'm not using a clipping mask to do that. So they're all still clipping back down to here. So let's see. Adding these on, bonk, 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 bonk. They're still all only visible where this layer is visible. And the reason why that was important is because now I can still, grab colors and I can still paint this like behind her. I can do whatever I want with that, and she's still selected out, right? And if I wanted to make a new layer above and I wanted to just color her, like if I want to just, grab a curves adjustment layer and clip that, I could, grab some green and pull that down, and it'll only color her because it's still clipped to her. And if I hadn't taken care of that clipping mask issue, I wouldn't be able to clip all the way down to her. Okay. That'll be more important in just a second, you'll see. Great. So now what I'd like to do, we've got her selected out from the background pretty well. We're gonna add some color into this image. So we're gonna go ahead and load in our sky. So the sky, let's just hold Shift and Command and hit my open bracket a couple times, and we're going to close this group down. All right, let's bring the sky up above there. Okay, and we're gonna move this sky and put it somewhere, right about there. Looks great. Let's hit Command T, and I kind of want to shrink this down like into position. There we go. Now keep in mind I'm keeping the left side of this image bright and the right side of it dark because that's what's going on with the light on her face. So this is what we're going to use as a background here. Now, there are a couple of things that we need to keep in mind. It looks horrible right now. She looks totally cut out, and the reason is because she's actually lighter than the background, which is impossible. Like if the light source was the sky, how could she be brighter? She would have to be emitting light herself for that to be physically possible, and she's obviously not. So one thing that I like to do, and this is just a quick way to kind of see, so you're not looking at colors. I'm going to make an adjustment layer. We're going to go to Channel Mixer, and I'm going to click on Monochrome. Okay, this just basically makes things black and white. So this it takes away color, and I'm not worried about color anymore. All right, now what we're gonna do, this layer, if you remember this layer that we made, I'm gonna hit delete on that because we don't need that anymore. What we're gonna do is click between this layer and that layer, and I'm going to see the differences in the light level alone. I don't care about the color, not at all just yet. I would just care about the light level, okay? So it's hard for me to see the light levels exactly, unless I make it black and white, and then all I look at is the light levels. So it makes it a bit easier. Okay, what we're gonna do is, you can see, this is our goal and this is our reality. We have quite a big task ahead of us. I'm going to make this lighter, and I'm gonna do that with curves and levels. So let's grab our adjustment layer. We'll go up to curves, and now I'm gonna hit Option Command G. See, these clipping masks really do come in handy. And we're going to make this brighter. And when I do, it's only gonna make this background, these clouds, brighter. So we're going to click and right here, just start making it quite a bit brighter. And you can go by like, does this look good or not look good if you want to, or you can just, make this invisible and back visible again. All right, so you can see it's still not, there we go. It's still a little bit not as bright as we need it to be bright. All right, so we still need to brighten it up a little bit more even. All right, but it's definitely a lot better. Like you can see that doesn't really look natural. That looks quite a bit better. Let's take the black and white off, and you can see we still have our color. So it's like, you know, does this look better or does that look better? It's like, oh, well, that one looks way better, Aaron. Good job. Thanks, man. All right, we're going to bring this up a little bit more. I just want to make sure we're not ruining our colors here. Like I want to be sure we can still see our colors. Okay, now this, I'm happy with how bright that is, but this has got to be brighter. Like you can see, if I keep pulling this up, we lose all this really nice color here. Okay, so I don't really want to lose that color. I like it. So we're not going to lose it. What we're going to do instead is, but I need this area to be brighter, right? Because you can see like it's brighter up there. So what we're going to do instead, I'm going to make another curves adjustment layer, Option Command G, clip on that one, and I'm going to make this a bit brighter. But I'm not going to have this be visible where everything is visible. I'm going to hit Command I on the layer mask. Okay, let's close this out. Then I'm just going to use my brush tool and then paint it about 10% flow with a huge brush. Okay, and just make this visible like, you know, right there. There we go. And so that's only visible at the top part of the image. Let's see if how that compares to below. Looks pretty good. We could even make this a little bit more visible there. All right, and we have our detail from the bottom part, and it is in fact brighter at the top as well, and we have a different color in there, which is perfect. All right. I hope you guys are doing okay. I know we're covering a total lot, but see how it goes from like pretty dark up here to light. I just needed it to stay lighter up there, and you can see like this doesn't look that great. Now it looks way better because you have to match light from the original photo. That's something that's very hard to, you know, it's hard to get across because it's very important. Like the sky lights her. So if you put a dark sky in a picture with a light person on there, like it's going to look horrible. You just make it a lot lighter and then it's like, oh, it already looks a lot better. That's awesome. So making it black and white helps out with that. All right. Now on a new layer, what I'm going to do, let's Option Command G, clip that as well, is I'm just going to grab the brush tool. I know, I love the brush tool. I'm never going to not love the brush tool. I'm just going to grab the brush tool and start painting over these like trees and stuff like that. I'm grabbing the color that's like right above it. Now, you might be asking yourself, why am I not using like the clone stamp tool? And that's a good question. The reason I'm not, let's make a new layer and I'll show you. I'm not really against the clone stamp tool, but what you wind up getting are like, you wind up getting just like duplicates of patterns and stuff like that. Like this, like that doesn't look that bad, but like there's I don't know, like a slight dark area there, and there's not really any texture or anything there anyway. So it's like, why not use the brush tool? And then you can be creative. Like you can paint your own clouds in. Like you don't have to be restricted to what nature gives you. You can make your own. And you know, you don't have to be like an amazing artist here. God knows I'm not. But you know, you can start off like this, sample some colors outside there, you know, paint like that. And then you have, you know, something that's nice and natural. And then, you know, if you wanted to make a new layer, I don't know, you could even grab a custom brush or something. I don't know, I'm just going to load one of these that's in Photoshop. This might look horrible. I don't even know what I'm doing right now. These are just random brushes in Photoshop. If it looks okay, I'll send you that. So I'll send you the brush. All right, let's go here. I'm going to open a brush menu. See, I wasn't planning on doing this, but now I just will do it because I want to. Let's bring the spacing up, and the transfer flow jitter is going to be on pen pressure, shape dynamics, size jitter up, minimum diameter up. All right, and see how that looks. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. All right. So now we have a little bit of like texture and stuff in there too. Grab some of this lighter color and start painting it in there. I don't know. This looks at best medium. But there we go. It's at least some kind of texture and stuff like that in there. make a big one and just do like, see? There we go. And that kind of looks like sky or cloud or something like that. I bet if we blurred this, let me just right click and say save this, and we'll just call this cloud. It just gives it a little bit more texture. Let's zoom in so you guys can see that. It gives it a little bit more texture than it would have before. And I'm just gonna give this a blur, and I bet it's gonna start looking pretty good. There we go. Yeah. And it just looks like sky now. See, I just painted my own sky. I don't need you, sky. I got my own sky. I just made it. Okay. So now you can make all of your own skies as well, and they'll have a little bit of texture. So that looks great. We're off to a good start, and our background looks pretty good. Now what we need to do is start matching our foreground to our background. And before we do color, I want to work with her hair just a little bit more. It's not that I think there's really anything wrong with her hair, but I think it could be a little bit better selection, and just want to be sure we do that. So I'm going to hit Shift Command, click on Shift click all those, hit Command G. So there's our background so far. Okay, now let's make this invisible, and we'll just go to select and like color range this time. So instead of the channels, I'm going to select the color range, and I'm going to select her hair, and then that'll select that part of her hair, and then we're just going to do this a couple times. Brush tool, I'm gonna choose a normal brush because that cloud brush was pretty weird. You guys are like, I don't want your stinking cloud brush, that sucked. Hit Command H, and I'm just gonna paint some of this back now. There we go. So I selected the color that was up there. That's what my layer mask looks like up there now, and that looks pretty good. Let's make this invisible again, and then we will try to go to select and then color range. Oh, that's a refine edge. Color range again, and instead of up there, maybe we'll select right here, and we'll see. Oh, you can't do that on the layer you're on, or what you're gonna get is it selects, it tries to select from a layer mask. So a good tip is just to make a new layer. Select color range, go down to here, and see what we can do there. All right, so maybe I'll be able to get those hairs now. So we'll make this back visible again, and then there we go, looking pretty good. And on my layer mask, I'm just gonna fade these out just a little bit to give them a even transition. Cool, that looks pretty good. You're looking good, lady. So we're decently cut off from our background. Now the test is the color is still not perfect, but if you put it in black and white and it looks pretty good, then you're on your way. And it does look pretty good. There is, a little bit of dark here that I want to take care of. Like I'd like that dark to be a little bit lighter. So we're gonna grab another adjustment layer. We're gonna go up to curves. I'm gonna hit Option Command G to clip that. Okay, and then we're going to, notice I'm clipping everything. So this is not gonna affect my background. It's only gonna affect her. And that's the beauty of this. We're gonna bring this up a little bit in brightness. Okay, that looks pretty good there. And now I'm gonna hit Command I on my layer mask, and that's going to invert my layer mask and paint white at about 10% with a big fuzzy brush. And that's just gonna help lighten her face a little bit, and this area too. And the reason I'm lightening these guys is because her face it was a little bit too much in shadow. Like it was just getting a little bit too dark. And if she's in this big old bright sky and it's so bright and beautiful all around her, like it doesn't make sense that her face would go that dark, right? It should be relatively light. There we go. So I'm just kind of painting it in the areas that I feel it could use a little bit of brightness. All right, and now we're looking pretty good. Let's just turn off that black and white, and you can see yeah, it looks better. Even though the color is not right yet, it still looks better. So these black and white layers are really nice, because if your image looks great in black and white, you're well on your way to having it look great in color. If it doesn't look great in black and white, you should fix your light levels before worrying about color, because you'll never get your color right if your light levels aren't right to begin with. All right, there we go. We're looking pretty good. Now, what I'd like to do is start to color our image. And to do this, what I want to point out here is a couple things. Did I just choose the ugliest color in the world to show you guys some things? I think I did. Okay, so we're going to look at our lights and our darks. Okay, the lights here, God, that is the ugliest color in the world. our lights here, this is like a yellowish color. And here in our darker areas, we have like a bluish. And here in our midtones, we have like a purple magenta kind of color. So we have a color range on our image. And remember we talked about before with, this color reflecting the sky and this color reflecting the ground and all that stuff. We also have the same thing. If we have light in our highlights, yellowish in our highlights, and magentas and then blues, same thing needs to happen with our subject. Actually, she needs to have more of this like yellowy color in her highlights, and her shadow needs to be reflecting like the blues and the magentas and everything like that. So wow, I just really messed that image up. Let's just hit delete on that layer. So we're going to do some things to reflect that. All right, now to do that, we're just going to this time I'm going to make a curve adjustment layer again. Curves and levels, it's, to be honest, like they do the same thing. Sometimes I just feel like making a curves. Sometimes I feel like making a levels. It's really about the same. Okay, so we're gonna make that, and I'm gonna hit Option Command G to clip that as well. And what did we say? The highlights, we want to be a little bit more yellow, right? So blue and yellow are opposites. Green and magenta are opposites. Red and cyan are opposites. So our highlights a little bit more yellow. We're gonna grab the blue channel, okay? And I'm gonna pull this top down a little bit, and you're going to see that's going to put some yellows in our highlights. It's also going to darken our highlights a little bit, okay? But it is going to put some yellows in there. That looks pretty good. Now, that's not the yellow we want, obviously. So to figure out what color we do want, I'm just going to exaggerate it real quick. We're going to grab the green and pull that down, and it's like, oh, that's more the color we want. Let's see, the red, and I pull that down. It's like, no, that's not the color we want. So we know we got to do this with both green and blue because that's the end color that we want. So let's try dragging this down a little bit, and then we'll drag the green down a little bit with it. All right, and let's grab blue and drag that down a little bit more, and we'll grab the green and drag that down a little bit more too. Okay, so you can see it's darkening up a little bit, which is what we want, right? It was a little bit too light, and it's taking those highlight colors and it's putting a little bit, it's putting some of this color that's in the image into those highlights, which is exactly what we want. Perfect. All right, there we go. I think that's looking pretty good. And if you guys are not amazed by that, I think you should be, because that's awesome. How much better does that look already? Okay, now we're going to take care of the shadows, which are like blues and purples and all that stuff. All right, so we're going to look at our blues again, and we're just going to do the same thing with our shadows. Now, if you want to drag it in this way, it's going to compress it that way. If you want to do this, it's going to lighten your shadows, okay? So I'll explain how this works, because if you're looking at this and you're confused, I don't blame you. This is a very confusing thing. Basically, here's how this works. This is the lightest point of your image, okay? If you want to drag this down, it takes the lightest point in your image. Sorry, I'm going to grab RGB and yeah. If you're going to make a new one, so I don't mess up that one, I can show you. The lightest point in your image is up here. The darkest point in your image is down here. If you take this and drag it down, it takes the lightest point of your image and it just makes it darker. Okay? The other way does the opposite. If you take over here and drag it up, it takes the darkest, so it makes your blacks less black. There we go. And eventually you wind up with white. Here you wind up with black. Now, the other way compresses your scale. And it says anything, this is the information that's in your image. All this is lighter pixels, this is darker pixels. If you take this and drag it to the left, what it does is it clips. It starts saying, okay, now everything that's to the right of this is going to be completely white. So you can see that's what that does. By the way, this almost always looks horrible, so I wouldn't recommend going this way. This is going to take everything that's to the left and make it black. Okay, so this makes your blacks lighter. This makes your blacks, it makes more of your pixels black, and the opposite. Now with the colors, it does the same thing, but with color. So this is like red and cyan are the opposites, right? So if you take your cyans and you start dropping this down, it brings more cyans into your highlights because this is the highlight. If you take this and bring it up, it's going to bring more red into your shadows. Now the opposite is going to start clipping and you're going to get more reds in your highlights, and here you're going to get more red, more cyans in your shadows. So more cyans in your shadows, more red in your shadows. Very cool. And it works the same way with all of them. Green, more magenta, more green. more magenta, more green. Okay, I hope that helped out, guys, because I know that can be pretty confusing, but I want you to be able to do this well, and I want you to have all the confidence in the world, because it's important. There we go. Let's do the same thing. Let's go with our blue channel, and now we're seeing, like, we know to do blue, because we already looked at this. We had, like, yellows here, and we had, like, blues and purples, right? So we go blue, and then we're like, yeah, let's put some blues in our shadows. So put a little blue in the shadows, and then what's the opposite of green? Magenta. This. See, it's going to put more of that green in there. Now, let's put some red. Blue and red mixed together. That's purple, right? There we go. So putting some blue, and I'm going to put a little bit more red, and then we'll put a little bit more blue too. Take the red down just a little bit. You can do a lot to color an image with just one curves adjustment layer. So let's turn this off and on, and let's look at the before and after real quick. So there's our before and after, and we can see what a difference that makes. How much better our colors look, right? It's like, you know, she looks like she's reflecting a blue sky and there's green around her, kind of. This is a lot more, you know, she's reflecting much better the colors that are actually going on in this scene, which is perfect. Okay, now we're going to do a couple tricks. So I'm going to make a new layer again, and I'm going to clip this again. We're going to hit B for our brush tool. We'll close this out. B for the brush tool, and I'm going to grab this actual color that's in the highlights here, and I'm going to start painting it over our subject. There we go, on the left side of her. I don't care about the right side because this is, you know, highlight color, right? There we go. We're going to paint this on our subject. Now, you can do this a lot of different ways. You can change this to a soft light layer. You could use blend if. You can use apply image. I'll show you guys a couple different ways. But basically, I'm going to take the highlight color from my background and stick it on her. So I took the color, I already painted it on her. Let's try changing this from normal to soft light. Okay, let's see, it's like, oh, that's the color from the background. How'd you know? And now we want to restrict this to the highlights because it's a highlight color. So you can try double clicking over here, and here's your layer style over here. And this blend if down here is really magical. You can just choose for this layer or the underlying layer to have it be visible where the underlying layer is darker or lighter. So if we don't want it to be visible where the underlying layer is darker, because that's the shadows, remember it's a highlight color, you just hold Alt or Option and click here and drag out. There we go, and hit OK. So now this color is visible where the highlights are on my underlying layer, which, by the way, this is the underlying layer. It's not anything underneath it, but you can see this is clipped to it as well. So it's visible where the highlights are visible on the underlying layer. Pretty awesome. Let's try doing that again. I'm going to do the same thing, and this time I'm going to go a little bit brighter to kind of reflect some of that color. There we go. And you can see it's already clipped. Isn't this the beauty of clipping masks? Like, I don't have to try to make that, you know, I'm not remasking every time. I'm just clipping it to her. And because we spent time to make her like masked out well to begin with, like, it's perfect. All right, let's try changing this from normal to soft light again. And double click on there, go from left to the right, Alt Option. There we go. Cool, and you can see she's blending in to there pretty well. Not only that, but it's helping add some of the color from the background layer to her. Okay, let's do the same thing. New layer, Option Command G. Gonna grab my brush tool, and I'm gonna grab this blues and some purples and some oranges. Yeah, that's nice. There we go. Just going crazy with the brush tool over here. Not really any method to this. Okay, I'm just kind of, I want a nice blur of some different colors. Now we're going to do the opposite. Okay, so we're going to change this from normal to soft light as well. And already it looks so much better. Double click on here, and let's say make it not visible where the underlying layer is lighter. Or darker or lighter. No, you know what? This doesn't look good. It doesn't look as good. If I just lower the opacity a little bit, I think I'll like that better. It's just going to add some of the color in the backdrop to our subject, which is what we want it to do. Perfect. Now, we're doing pretty well here. She is reflecting a bit of blue up here. It's the wrong blue. Like it's blue on the side of green, not blue on the side of red, right? You can see it doesn't look good, right? It's not the same. So you can do this in many different ways. I'm just going to make a lasso selection real quick around there. And I'm going to grab my hue saturation. Again, you can clip this too. Like you can clip anything you want. There's no rules. Option Command G to clip that. And we'll just drag our hue to the right. And that's like, you know, here at 0, doesn't really look good. And then we'll just go to the right a little bit. And then it's like, oh, cool, reflects the color that's in the sky. That's great. Okay, close this up and we're looking pretty good. So shift click on this. You can see it only looks good there. Like it doesn't look good everywhere, but I only need it to look good right there anyway. So that's what our selection looks like. I'm gonna give this a bit of a blur so we don't have like I don't want any hard edges, right? There we go. And now it's reflecting the color that's in the sky. Just lower the opacity just a little bit. Beautiful. Lady, you never look so good. All right. You know I get excited when I do Photoshop, don't I? Surprise. I love it. I think it's amazing what we're doing. It's amazing that this can be done. See that little dot right there? Oh, wait. Could it be? All right. You see, I missed this area. See that fringing there? It looks horrible. You can take care of it. I don't have to go all the way back down here, by the way. I don't have to do that. I can make a new layer above all this and just grab my brush tool, grab this color and paint that fringe, okay? Just like we did way early on, remember? Just grab this color and paint that fringe, and then you don't have a visible fringe. It's just like, you know, right here, same thing. Bonk. There we go. Light color all the way to the edge. We don't have some weird, like, dark border, right? There we go. And we'll do the same with her hair. That hair looks a bit weird up there. I'm going to do some things with color up there. All right, are we good okay at the rest of the image with the fringing? A little bit down there, right? All right, so there's a dot there. We'll make our subject invisible because there was dust on the lens, or on the sensor. That just happens. Make a new layer above this stuff, and you can use the healing brush tool. A lot of people use the healing brush tool for, you know, like zits and things like that, and that's a good use of the healing brush tool. Today I'm using it for sensor dust because that's another good use of this tool. So to use the healing brush tool, just hold down Alt or Option, sample on the point that you want your final to look like, and then you just paint over it. So I just took care of some sensor dust there. Make all these back visible, and it's gone. Make our subject back visible. And we can't see any of that sensor dust. Great. This looks a little bit light. Now that I'm looking at this again, it looks a little bit light on her face, which is right there. So we're just going to lower the opacity of that just a little bit. Great. We're looking pretty good, guys. Now, another thing that I would like to do is add a little bit of light here as well on the backdrop. So we're going to go onto our backdrop, another curves adjustment layer. Okay, Option Command G. And I'm going to hit G for my gradient tool with a radial gradient, and I'm just going to hit Command I, which is going to invert my layer mask, and then I'm going to click here and drag out, which makes a radius that looks like that, or a gradient that looks like that. And then on my curve adjustment layer, I'm just going to brighten that side up a little bit. Because remember, our light source was coming from the left. I wanted that to just be a little bit brighter. Maybe not so much. There we go. Looking pretty good. All right. What do you say we get into some textures and some fun stuff and make this into that fashion image we know it can be? So this looks great. Like, I'm totally happy with what we've got going on. I think we're doing an amazing job, guys. And I'm definitely pumped about what we're doing here. What we're going to do is we're going to add some blurs to this, and we're going to add some text and things like that. And I'm going to add some textures, and I'm going to show you guys why the blurs and the textures, are important to do together. Okay, so on top of this, we're just going to assume that this is pretty good. So we've got channel mixer, we'll leave it visible. So again, our original image, our background, and then our subject. That's a pretty big change already, right? From the original. Definitely looks good. Okay, now what we're going to do is I'm going to merge these together. I'm going to make a stamp visible layer. So I'm going to hit Shift, Option, Command, E. That's going to make a stamp visible layer. Now this is just one layer that is a copy of everything. Okay, We need to do that to apply the blur that we're going to be doing on this. And the blur that I'm going to use, I'm going to hit Command S, by the way, and save this. Because the last time I tried to do a blur, it crashed Photoshop, and I hope that doesn't happen for you. I'm going to use a blur that's new to CS6. CS6 is free 30-day trial on Photoshop.com right now. If you guys don't have CS6, you can download it if you want to. So I'm going to use this blur. If you don't want to use this blur, you can just use a Gaussian blur with a layer mask. I'll show you guys how to do both. But I think it's a great blur. So that's incentive to get CS6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Filter. We're going to go to Blur, and I'm going to go to this Field Iris Blur. Sorry, I said Field Blur to begin with, but what I meant is Iris Blur. And this allows you to have like a blur center, and it blurs out from there. So the blur center, in this case, I would like to be right about her face. Okay, and you can say how far out you'd like this to blur, where you want it to start, and things like that. And then you can just tell it how much you would like to blur. All right, let's make that out a little bit more. And this I find is a really great tool for, let's bring this in so it blurs. There we go. I find this to be a really great tool for adding a focus to your subject. And it's just really easy to use. There's really nothing that I don't like about this. I like it all. It's just so good. There we go. I'm putting it over there so I get a little bit of blur on the hair as well. That looks pretty good. That's maybe a little bit, like that's kind of a lot of blur right down there, but we're going to add some stylization to this. Took me a little while to get that sentence out, but we're going to add some stylization to this, and I think you'll see why this blur is going to be okay. So I'm going to hit OK there. And in a second, it's going to give us this blur. Now keep in mind, this blur is on this layer. Like it's not like I can't have this blur on like a blank layer and then start editing what's under it. So if I want to edit this stuff under here, like even if I turn it all off, like I can't edit stuff under here and have it show up dynamically on this. Like we're stuck. If I don't, like if I decide like, oh, you know what, I would rather do something else under that blur, you just got to delete this layer and then redo the blur. But I'm pretty happy with what we've got here. So that's our blur layer. Okay. Now, what we've got is all these textures over top of it, and this is where it's going to get a lot of fun. Okay, so let's make all these visible, and I sent over a bunch because I want you guys to have fun with these. I'm going to start off with this one right here, and we're just going to do some fun things with these. This one, I'm going to change this from normal to screen. That's going to make the darks invisible, okay? I'm going to take that to about 40% opacity and then put a layer mask on this and paint black at about, 20% flow. There we go. And what this does, it's going to help add like nice little textures. And when we talked about this earlier, but when you add textures over top of like blurs or, just about anything that you do, it makes it look like you're almost like photographing through glass. And that's the idea here, is to make it look like there's almost something in front of the lens that's causing that to blur, rather than you just blurred your photograph. So we're going to change that to screen as well. I'm going to hit Command L. Maybe I want this to be a little bit yellow in here. All right, so we could grab like the blue channel. I can put that towards yellow. And I'm going to hit Command U and bring the saturation down a bit on there. All right, and then lower the opacity. Again, I'll put a layer mask because I don't want this stuff visible over her head. But you can see like it's already adding a little bit of like, what looks like dust or atmosphere or something like that to the image. And it's what makes this stuff fun. Like it's what's going to take your image from like a total snapshot into something that looks more artistic. And there's a time and a place for textures and things like that. I used to not really use them, and now I find that I like using them a lot, especially if they're well done and they're not obtrusive. Like that thing, that's obtrusive. So let's hit S for our clone stamp tool, change this from current and below to current layer. It's just going to clone stamp this layer, and I'm going to clone stamp right there. Bonk. See, and just clone stamp that out. Like all this stuff in her face I don't want there. Very cool. All right, let's lower the opacity of that a little bit as well, and put a layer mask on there and paint it away from her face. I even have these things like smoke, and you're like, are you really going to use that? You're crazy. Yeah, I am. Why not? There we go. let's pull a little bit of yellow in there. Pull a little bit of red. Bonk. Change this from normal to screen as well. And we've got this. Changing our opacity. I'm gonna hit Command L with our levels. All right, and it's just like, you know, smoke or mist or whatever, what have you. Put a layer mask on there and then paint black, especially here around the edges. Like, you don't want that to be visible, right? All right, so we're gonna add this in there, and it's just gonna give us like this nice, you know, haze that we've got here. And we'll do some of this too, why not? I can change the screen. The reason I was doing levels is because I put it to screen, but it's white, which doesn't make sense here, right? My lights, you know, they have like yellows and purples and blues in them, right? So if I want to hit, you know, do my levels, I want to make this closer to a yellow or an orange. So you could do that like with your blue channel. You can grab this and, you know, pull that down a bit. That's going to put some yellows in it, and then you grab your greens. There we go. So now that it's not white anymore, you can see it has some color to it, which is perfect. And we can put that in there too. Like, see? Bonk, and it just fits in there. It's like, oh, that looks pretty good, actually. I didn't think it would, but it does. There we go. And it's, you know, the more and more we do, the more stylization we add to this. And you don't have to do this. Like, I'm not, you know, I'm not telling you you got to do this. Like, to be a good photographer, you must add weird ass textures all over your stuff. And I like, that's ridiculous. I want to do it for this image, and it suits it in my opinion. But like, you know, that's, again, that's just what I think. All right, blue. And if you're watching this tutorial, you probably bought it. So you probably agreed that it didn't suck completely anyway. So anyway, I'm just gonna assume you agreed with me a little bit at least. Okay, this again, we'll just change this from normal to screen also. So I'm just loving this. It's like, you know, cool. Let's add textures. I don't want that to be visible over her face, so we put a layer mask on there. This again. You don't have to use all these, by the way. I'm going a little bit overboard on this. But why not? It's what it's all about sometimes. All right, now this is a cool one. This is a refrigerator, by the way. We're opening up the texture library pretty soon on Phlearn. We have thousands and thousands of textures, and I'm giving some away in these pro tutorials to kind of give you guys an idea of what you can do with textures. But that'll be online soon. We're building the world's largest amazing texture library, and it's just gonna have so many amazing textures you can do everything with. Let's change this from normal to like soft light. Now what's cool about this is, this is a picture of a refrigerator, right? But it's not a gradient in that I didn't grab the gradient tool. It's got definition in there, and it goes from dark to light. So it is like a natural gradient. And not only that, but it has a color in there too. So like you can change, you know, it's a light in or screen. I'm just gonna hit shift and click the plus and minus button to kind of scroll through my blending modes real quick. But like, you know, like that's like, if you like that sort of look, like you could do that. And it'll add texture at the same time. It's just very, very cool. Soft light, and then change your opacity to about 30%. And this will add a gradient to your image. If you want to hit Command T and hit right click and hit flip vertical, that'll make it darker on the top and lighter on the bottom. So you could, you know, try that if you wanted. Change this to something like screen and see, like, you know, do you like that color? Lower the opacity and put that on there. All right, we're getting a bit too light, so I'm just gonna delete that one. We're not gonna use that one either. But you can see adding all this texture, especially, you know, like, we'll just lower the opacity it's a little bit. Like over the belt and stuff like that. See all that blur, like that doesn't really bother me now, like this, that it's blurred, because it's like, it doesn't look like we just lost definition, because like now we have texture over top of it. So it fools your eye into thinking like, oh yeah, that's natural. You know, just kind of, there we go, that's cool. Right on. All right, let's change some other things about this image real quick, and I think we're looking great. Now, one other thing that I would want to do is I'm going to add some more of this blur stuff, but between this layer, which adds the texture over top, and this layer, which is the blur layer, I'm going to make a new layer in here, and I'm just going to grab my brush tool and kind of just grab some of these colors and hit like Shift 1 on my keyboard and just kind of paint it in there. I'm going to do the same thing with like her hair in the background. And this is just going to help add, there we go. Grab some of our paint hair color and kind of paint it in there. This is just going to help blend everything together. All right, and we have like this nice, cool, soft image that I think is starting to look great. Looks a lot like a, you know, campaign fashion type ad type image, which is very cool. I said we were going to fix something with her hair earlier, didn't we? So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to make this into a selection, and there's just too much blue in that. See, like it's just not nice. It could look a lot better. So we're just going to grab our curves adjustment layer, and I'm going to grab our blues. We'll just pull that down, and we're going to grab our greens and pull that down as well. There we go, and we can see it's starting to add some color back in there. All right, let's give that a nice big blur. You know what? And then the RGB, we just need to drag that up because it made it too dark, but it did put color in there, which I like. All right, and then on our layer mask, we're going to paint this black. I really only want this visible, you know, where that hair is, where the problem area was. Maybe fade it out a little bit more. Yeah, I kind of like the warmth on it, actually. I'm just going to keep on going with it. Why not? Didn't look bad. It looked good. All right, let's lower the opacity of that a little bit so we don't get carried away. Sometimes it's easy to get carried away. I do it all the time, and I'll like step away from an image and I'll come back and be like, yeah, that looks horrible. What was I thinking? That happens to everyone. So if it happens to you, don't worry, you're normal. Okay, now I think we're looking great. We're gonna go ahead and color tone this image a bit. So we're gonna make, on top of everything, I'm gonna grab a curves adjustment layer. And the same way we were doing with this earlier, we're going to take a blue channel and just click and drag this down. It's going to put some yellows into our highlights and some blues into our shadows, just like that. And then our red channel, we're going to, I want some reds in our shadows. Just a little bit. All right, and then our green channel, you can even do stuff like this, which is going to give you more contrast. So if you want more contrast, drag your shadows down and your highlights up. I think this is, I want a little less contrast. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. And let's grab another levels adjustment layer, and I'll put this below there. I just want to make it, you know, things just a little bit darker here. Mostly over here. So I'm going to put a layer mask on there. The reason I want is because we lost a little bit of definition here with, you know, with lightening it up. Like we went a little crazy there, right? So I'm just going to maybe darken up the left side and keep the right side a little bit lighter. You know, just so it looks somewhat natural. All right, and I do, like, I want that definition in there. Like, I'm not okay losing it. I'm not gonna lose your definition. I love you. You can see I was sincere. There, see, I didn't even see that there, and that's part of one of my textures. See, that's this texture there. So I've got to put a layer mask on there. It's already got a layer mask. I just need to paint black on the layer mask there. There we go. So we brought back some definition, and now I can actually see what's going on in our image, which is very nice. And I did that underneath this layer, like I made it a little bit darker, and then I did it underneath this layer, which color toned my lights and my darks and gave us this really nice effect that we have here, which is perfect. And I'm totally digging it, and I hope you guys are too. Let's see, I'm gonna do a couple more things. We're just gonna do this on top of everything else. Why not? I'm gonna grab my clone stamp tool and just clone stamp current to below some of the hair right there, okay? Just like that. And change this from normal down to like lighten. Or maybe we'll go to screen. No, screen is not good. We'll go to lighten. And I'm just gonna, you know, put some more hair and stuff like that in there. So layer mask that in. I'm trying to think and Photoshop at the same time. Not, don't suggest that. I'm putting more hair in there just because I want more hair, and then I'll just layer mask some of this stuff in there. Because it's not something that was like, that hair wasn't even in there in the original photo. I want her to look even more carefree and happy. So I clone stamped in there and put it into a lighten blend mode, and then it just, it lightened the background. So the hair just blends in pretty well there. All right. That looks awesome, guys. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to add some text to this. So I'm going to hit T for the text tool, or the type tool. Click on here, and I would type in Vogue, but someone will probably see that and be like, you can't do that. I'm so cool. So I'm going to type in fashion, which is decidedly much more lame, I know. But I'm not worried about getting sued. So if I type fashion, so I'm just going to type fashion. So if you want to put Vogue in yours, be my guest. I'm going to put fashion because that's just how this is going to go. Let's go on down to here to character, and you guys can do some cool things. By the way, this typeface is DIDOT. I don't know how to say that. Came with my Mac. So if you guys have a Mac, you probably have it. If not, I'm sure you could find one online that's very similar to this. The color, I'm going to not use this black. I'm going to use a dark blue, like that's already in here. That looks pretty good. We'll change this to something like overlay, or if you hit V and then hit shift and then your plus and minus arrows, like you can flip through your blending modes. And the reason I'm using the, a dark color here, multiply doesn't look bad, right? If you're in your move tool and you hit 1 through 10, it just changes the opacity of the layer that you're on. So I like to use it like quick, like checks is like, hit 6 and it'll change your opacity of the layer to 60%. Then you can hit shift, click and drag, or hit shift, plus and minus. Too many keyboard shortcuts. All right, that looks pretty good. Fashion. What we're gonna do here is, don't worry guys, I'm not gonna leave you stranded here because we're gonna take this and I'm gonna put it under, no, we're not gonna put it under the hair. We're going to make this invisible temporarily. Now, if you remember way back in here, we have a layer mask. Remember this layer mask that defines where her head is, okay? I didn't really blur her head, so that layer mask is still pretty much good to go. Whoa, I hit the wrong button. Undo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Alt or Option and click and drag this layer mask all the way up here to fashion. Okay, so now we have the layer mask that was on her on the layer that says fashion. I just have to hit Command I, and now the fashion is behind our girl instead of in front of our girl, which is awesome. The other cool thing you can do is unclick that chain link between them and then click on your fashion and use your move tool, and like you can see it's like, what? Oh my god, did you just do that? You have words behind the person. Isn't that cool? Right? And you can see like it, because it's on a color burn blending mode, it's like blending in with all the cool colors in our background. So I dig that. I don't know. You think people are going to be able to read that and know that it's fashion? If not, if you're questioning it, if you're like, oh, I'm doing this too, you'd be like, fashion, whatever. I think people could read that, but you lose a lot of the coolness. It's a tough life being, this cool and so carefree. I'm just so carefree all the time. I just smile in the sunset all the time. All right, there we go. So this looks great, guys. Let's see, what else do we want to do here? I'm going to do some more text. Why not? I'm liking it. I'm getting a little carried away here. We're going to do this, and I'm going to make kind of a joke. Scarves. What we're going to do is we'll change this to Helvetica because I like Helvetica. I think that's a really nice font. There we go. Helvetica, and we'll just change this down to like -10. We'll make that quite a bit smaller. All right, -25 maybe. -50. This is changing the spacing between all the letters, by the way. All right, we'll bring that in there, and this time I'd like to go relatively light on that, and maybe you can't even see it if it's that light. So let's see about changing some blending modes. Scarves. All right. And then we're going to make a new layer above that. I'm going to hit M for my marquee tool and make a selection all the way to the edge of those. Then hold Alt or Option and hit Delete, which is going to fill with that color. And then I'm going to hit the down arrow like 4 times and then hit the delete again. And that just makes a line that's exactly, the same as that. I'm going to hit Shift and the down arrow a couple times, and that's just going to create another underline there. Scarves. All right. Now I'm going to click on my scarves layer, and I'm going to hit Command T. Let's just make this a bit smaller. Double click on here. There we go. I'm totally making a joke with the fashion industry right now. Some people are going to be outraged. But this is my ad. It's like it's a mix between it's a mix between the fashion, like a magazine cover and an ad. So if you wanted to you could shift click the 3 of those. I want them to all be right aligned, so I'm going to just shift click the 3 of them and right align them just like that. That's how you do that. And hit Command G, and now we have scarves. Buy them. Which I think is hilarious. I have a really weird sense of humor, but I think it's pretty funny. There we go. So let's lower the opacity on there, and you can put this wherever you want. It looks pretty good down there, doesn't it? So carefree. Yeah, fashion scarves. Oh, that looks good. Fashion scarves. Buy them. Maybe. I don't know. Someone at Vogue is going to look at this and be like, you suck at this. And I'll be like, whatever. You suck at everything else. All right, let's grab an adjustment layer. I'm going to go to curves, and let's just do a little bit more stuff on here to end the tutorial, and then we'll be done, guys. Blue, I want to add a little bit more yellow into my shadows. Why not? We're rocking this, super stylized image, and I want to do that, so I'm going to. All right, reds. I'm going to click on my hand and just pull down the reds just a tiny bit on there. There we go. Because her face was a little too red for my liking, to be honest. And the cool thing is, you guys can see that we did all that work to matching her color with the background color. But if you change them simultaneously, like you can see I changed them both at the same time just now, it's okay. Like as long as she did match with the background color to begin with, it's totally cool to change them both at the same time now because it's changing them together. So like, you don't have to worry about changing one or the other again. I don't know where this should go. I'm just so torn. I just want some scarves so hard. There we go. We'll just put this here. Scarves, buy them. Right. So the cool thing is you can change them all at the same time now. Because they are matched, you can change them at the same time. And even if like I wanted to make, let's say I made all these invisible and then made a new layer under here and just like grabbed this color and was like painted some of that on there, it's going to change all those colors too. There we go. And we'll just change this from like normal to lighten. Yeah, that looks so good. So happy about this. Scarves. I know you want a scarf right now. Don't even tell yourself you don't want one. You're like, God, I would look so good in a scarf right now. There we go. I dig it, guys. And then, here at the very end, we cannot have a proper fashion type photo unless we make a new layer over top of everything. We fill it with 50% gray, and we go to Filter, Noise, and we add some noise to this. Because everyone knows fashion and noise go hand in hand. This is like, you want a fashion type image, you're gonna want to get some noise all up in that piece. And changed about 50%. See, like, not as fashion-y, whoa, fashion. Not as fashion-y, whoa, fashion. Isn't it amazing? Look, our layer mask is not holding up extremely well right there. So we're just going to click on this, and I'm going to fix it a little bit of hand painting. Paint that black. See? This is so good. Whoa, what did I just do? I don't even know. I was scared just then. I hit the wrong button on my keyboard. I really have no idea what I hit. I'm not trying to be a alarmist here. There we go. And I'm just going to paint some of this stuff in there. make it look like there's hair over there. There's not. I'm just painting with a, soft edge brush here. Just a couple like things like that. Right on. See, there we go. Not as fashiony, fashiony. Not as fashiony, fashiony. And it sells everything. The fashion world loves a good amount of grain. Well, guys, thanks so much for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I think we had a lot of fun. We made this great image. It would look great without the fashion and without the scarves by them. But it's just a very, very cool time. And I thank everyone who entered the Facebook contest and everyone who voted too. You guys are the ones who really made this possible, and I couldn't be happier about how this image turned out. And it's all because of you. So thank you very much. Let's show you guys the before real quick and then the after. So Alt Option, let's click on the before and the after. Before and the after. Wow. Guys, that's awesome. Congratulations, everyone who's followed it this far. Great job. I'll see you soon. Thanks so much. Find more great tutorials at phlearn.com. Bye, guys.